Welcome, everybody. It's the Agent Economy, episode 11. I'm here with Chris, and today we're going to be talking about who's watching the answer and what tools are the ones in the market today to track your share of voice inside of platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Perplexity. So, Chris, maybe you can say a few words about the platforms that you like and you've been using over the last 12 months.
Yeah, so we did a bit of a market review towards the latter end of last year. I'm obviously setting up Blackbird as an agency. We wanted to partner with technology companies. So we looked across Profound, Peak, Searchable, lots of other AI visibility tracking tools. And at the time, they were really the leaders in this space. Over time, and I say over time, like 3-4 months, we're now at a position where there's hundreds of platforms, right? And
Yeah.
for us, we've partnered very closely with Searchable. They're one of our strategic partners. We love working with them. We love working with the tech, the team that they've got over there, and what they're building kind of right now, but also where it's going in the market as well. So agentic commerce, LLM advertising. So yeah, they're one of our big partners.
Nice. And I've got a similar relationship with the share model tool owners, Jellyfish, who are part of the brand tech group. So like you did a bit of analysis at the beginning to have a look at which tools I could use. I actually ran a few tools in parallel. So I did quite a bit on Peak in the early days as well, and really like the share model tool for some of the additional functionality that it's got that helps me with the clients that I'm working with. But I think I heard an interesting viewpoint the other day, which was actually kind of helpful to run multiple tools in parallel and
Yeah.
see what overlap there is. And I think being the sort of services layer of a business that we are, I think it's possible to do that, right? So if certain clients want us to run a certain tool, then we'll absolutely do that for them. But I think today we're going to talk through some of the different functionality that exists, some of the pros and cons of using a different platform, the category of tracking visibility in AI search, right? So really important thing to do. I know we were talking just before this that in the SEO world, some agencies still not even really looking at AI search, which is kind of wild when you look at the numbers in front of us now. I think for me, hard to believe that any brand or service isn't thinking quite seriously about trying to track this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And obviously we've got some key stats on the slide as well around what's happening in the market. I actually read some super interesting stats from publishers based in the UK here, and actually broader than that in some of the other markets that their clicks across the board are obviously depleting pretty rapidly. There was actually a recent study which came out LinkedIn showing that some of the publishers are now opting out of the answer engines. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic with those guys. But
It
yeah,
really is. And I think it gets messy quite quickly on that as well. For you're half opted in, half opted out. I mean, I know that for some publishers, they're getting paid to write content for brands and that content wants to be in there. But for the other content that maybe they've originated themselves, they don't want it to be in there. So yeah, I think it gets real messy in terms of how you manage to gate that if you decide to. I think the interesting thing about how these tools work as well, right, is they're mostly, I think, doing the same mechanics. So either running via APIs or via headless browsers, but actually, taking the prompts, running them through the models, seeing what the answers are, and then giving you that information back. I did see another interesting post recently that was talking about the relevance of the scoring that comes on these platforms. And it was to do with how many times you need to ask a prompt to actually understand what is the real share of answer that you've got, or like the frequency that you appear, or the position that you have. Because of course, if you just do it once, we know that these models are probabilistic, they change, they take into consideration history, chat history, etc. So like it really isn't enough to do it once, you have to do it multiple times. And this post is actually saying about 1,000 times a prompt is really where you need to get real statistical relevance in the answers. I'm not sure if that's like definitely true, so don't take that as like you need to run each prompt 1,000 times, but it's certainly a number bigger than one, right?
interesting. Yeah, I know for some of the AI visibility platforms, they have different frequencies on how often you run the prompts themselves. We're typically running each prompt daily, but I know for Peak, you can kind of change the frequency to be like once every week. But yeah, you're right. I think in order to kind of normalize, clear out some of the personalization and the slight nuances in the responses, it's about running these prompts consistently over a longer period of time and obviously
Agreed.
tracking the relevant metrics against them. But
Yeah.
1,000's interesting. It's going to be a long delay or quite costly.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe it was funded by the LLMs. Like, you need to run this many prompts through our API before you get relevance, i.e., give us loads of money. I think the other interesting thing about the market right now, right, is that what we've seen is there's lots of new tools. So, all the ones we mentioned at the beginning, share model, peak, profound, searchable, etc. They're new GEO tools that have been created for this particular new space in the market. But it's also true that the legacy SEO players have now built in the functionality into their tools. So SEMrush, Ahrefs, I've got it really interestingly in my HubSpot subscription, of which I pay the basic tier for CRM. I can now do GEO. So it actually, like, based on all the information it knows about me, figures out what other queries that might be relevant to my company, starts running them, tells me what my visibility is, starts making recommendations about what content I could change. I feel like these tools are going to maybe end up being bolt-ons to lots of existing SaaS as well. Because at the end of the day, the actual tracking isn't very scientific. Like, it's not particularly difficult to build that, right? Just the prompts, run them, record the answers. It's quite simple. But what we're seeing with all the platforms is, of course, they're building out more functionality for the value prop, right? So they're able to do more things. And I think that's what we're going to get into today to talk about some of the differences between the capabilities of the different platforms.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at new entrants to the market, and there are hundreds, they're very much analytics. And the reason being is that, to your point, you can build these pretty easily in terms of tracking the prompts, tracking the responses, and then highlighting visibility, share of voice, etc. That's the easy bit. The harder bit is the agentic workflows, actually building out workflows, processes, and actually that kind of service model off the back of it. That's the bit where organizations like Profound, like Searchable have moved into. And that's really the true value that is being driven by these platforms. Yeah, it's super interesting. You mentioned HubSpot. A lot of the web design companies or CMSs now obviously implementing or having AEO functionality. So Webflow is a great example. They've gone all in on this. So not only can you build and host your website, but you can also run AEO programs. So don't know how good they are, but it's a bit of a land grab across the board because it's a fundamental shift in search, which is extremely important.
Yeah, and Shopify did come out with something on this space it feels like a long time ago. I mean, it was within the last year, but they bought something out where you could figure out what people were searching about your brand and then build it into your store. But it actually didn't land very well. It has not really been used, and the app's not fantastic. It's not got a lot of functionality in it. And I wonder whether they got caught up with OpenAI figuring out like who's going to own the checkout and be the merchant of record and all that stuff, which they've been prioritizing. And maybe they come back to it because it's a platform which I think would make total sense. Press this button, understand your visibility. Here's a rework of all your content to meet that visibility gap, and then you just need to make the decision as whether or not to do it.
It's
I do think
100%.
one other build is like, the sort of rationale for people like you and me to be in the industry and to be doing what we're doing is you actually still need a practitioner to help you with this stuff at the moment, right? So cool, you know what your visibility is. Cool, the program or the platform, sorry, tells you, hey, using this agentic workflow, you should deploy this content XYZ. And most of the time it's probably making the right recommendation, but like actually getting it done, like tracking the results, seeing if it worked, building it into the broader plan that the brand might have for their communication strategy, like that bit is for now a little bit more complicated. And I think
Yeah.
we'll continue to see like the service prop around these tools building out. Because
Yeah.
I think the service prop probably, like, the value in the service prop follows the expansion of the tools. And so we see the expansion of the tool usage. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
great, now I need someone to actually tell me how to use it. And then the service like follows maybe 3 months later. So with that in mind, we've probably still got quite a bit of growth to come.
Yeah. 100%. I think most of the companies now are going for this like SaaS model, the product led growth, right? So you set up a MVP, you launch it to the market, you build cohorts, and obviously you get traction, clients obviously using the tech. You don't need to hire massive teams behind it. But I think that model works up to a point, and there'll probably be like two or three category owners, peak, searchable, profound. But the market's so dynamic, you need to have that service layer on top to adapt to the changes, whether it's changes in the models, whether it's new capabilities that are coming to market, because we can obviously build much faster now. So I think the service as a software in this space is actually the perfect model that will work with clients. So you have that kind of dynamic at play. And then obviously, yeah, lots of new entrants as well coming in. So we're still defining the category. Things will obviously play out over a couple of years, but yeah, super interesting at the moment.
It is. And then I saw this LinkedIn post from an agency entrepreneur that was saying the current YC backed marketing services companies are not really services companies at all. Reading this here from his post, they're actually software companies dressed up as AI enabled service companies.
Yeah.
He said, there's nothing wrong with starting a martech company, but just don't pretend that you're something that you're not. So if your pricing ranges from $200 to $2,000 a month, you're not actually competing with agencies that charge 20,000 to 100,000 a month. And what I would challenge back on that is actually that could never have been true a year ago. A big brand would have said, "There's no way we're going to stop paying 20,000 a month to this agency, who we know does the work for us, and instead pay 2,000 a month to this new agency over here because we'll get 10% of the work." Now the conversation is, why are you not firing the $20,000 a month agency
Yeah,
because they're doing work slower and less efficiently than the $2,000 a month agency over here? So whole thing I think is starting to like flip on its head, where people are, instead of thinking, hey, if we pay 10% of the cost, we're going to get 10% of the service, to thinking, if we're paying such a high cost, we're getting ripped off. But clearly they must be, if they're not using AI to do it, then like we're even further behind with this agency. So I actually think that that's slightly misplaced, that view of like those new AI native agencies. Like the whole idea of service as a software like isn't going to eat the lunch of the big agencies. I think that's happening, and it's gonna be really interesting to watch
yeah,
it
for
play out.
sure. I mean, you're seeing it across some of the larger holdcos, especially in the marketing space, where they're just getting crushed at the moment. And they're trying to adapt the model, right? They're trying to typically you win clients, you put headcount on it, margins were tight. Now you've got clients scrutinizing that work and asking, why are we operating on an FTE model? Why are we being billed based on
Exactly.
hours? Doesn't make any sense when I can basically prompt Claude, set up agentic workflows and do it for a tenth of the price. So you're right, it's a shift. So these legacy businesses are going to really, really struggle. But for organizations like LMO7 and Blackbird, we're in a really sweet spot,
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
hopefully.
So we've got all the different platforms. So Profound, they're the OG, platform. They're the ones that first really like created this space, I think. These guys, Profound, are the ones who are known to be the first entrants into the market. They, scooped up loads of, well, firstly, investment, but then secondly, all of the, let's say, big Fortune 500 clients in the US. Tends to be quite expensive, especially on the enterprise grade, but they've been doing some interesting things, bringing about shopping visibility, and also helping with agentic workflows as well. So they went quite early on helping brands figure out what content to deploy, and then also deploying that content for them if they've done all the right connections inside of the platform. So getting a lot of traction, put on I think 3 or 4 annual events now as well, which get a lot of visibility, and doing a really good job of, I think, growing the category and like educating people on AI search, which is great. PKI came along, I think probably about 6 months after Profound. Started out of Berlin, similar sort of story to Profound in that been growing really fast, have taken a whole bunch of VC money as well to be able to do that. I think they have a great go-to-market team, so they have a really good sales process, and it's also a little bit more cost-effective than the Profound platform, and they ship quite fast, but I'd say the platform is not as enterprise-grade, should we say, as Profound. Profound's probably the platform of choice for enterprises. Peak's probably more like mid-tier and like startup brands, although maybe that's shifting over time. Plus, I think a lot of agencies are starting to use it behind the scenes as well. They've got a good MCP, so you could set up in their platform and you can pull the information out and visualize it and dashboard it in the way that you want for your clients.
The searchable, obviously very similar in terms of tracking. So tracking across ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. I think one of the key reasons we went with searchable very early on is their AI agent capabilities in platform. So the ability not only just to report on the metrics that are important, visibility, share of voice, as I mentioned, but also move from reporting to action and optimization very quick. So you essentially build your knowledge base around your client. And then from there, the solution has a really good indication of who that particular brand is. You run obviously then custom prompts and can crawl the site. But it's also then going to start to flag through using automation kind of critical issues you should be focused on, whether that's technical issues, content adjustments, digital PR outreach. And the agent handles a lot of that. So that was one of the key things really shifting into this kind of agentic workflow for us. Another area, and especially if you're from an SEO background and listening to this pod, the ability to consolidate a lot of different technologies and integrate them directly into Searchable. Whereas before you'd be using GSE, GA4, maybe using Google Sheets, then you'd be using some tracking solution. You have the ability to integrate everything, kind of similar to some of the other platforms, but it is super slick to integrate everything in. You've got a central operating system, and away you go once you're in it. And these guys ship super fast, so lots of cool new capabilities. We're deep, we work very closely with the product team. So if we see something in market which we think we need basically built into Searchable, they will look at it and obviously build it out. And like I say, moving into agentic commerce, LLM advertising, which that kind of, if you look at the Venn diagram, those three are going to complement each other really nicely.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how all these platforms adapt to and start to figure out how to integrate or provide insights for ChatGPT ads as well. I mean, I think it's just a natural evolution, isn't it, of understanding organic visibility and then understanding paid. I think on the Peak platform, on their latest iteration, they're starting to bring in some visibility about when ads are being triggered on certain queries.
Yeah,
So you
nice.
could see that. Also, I do have to keep reminding myself that ChatGPT ads do exist, because as a paid subscriber, I don't see them. So I have to keep reminding myself to go look and log out of ChatGPT and type in some prompts and see what's getting fired. So that's a tip to anyone who's a paid user and hasn't yet sort of experienced them in real life. Log out and check out the platform with the paid placements below the answers. And then Share of Model is the platform I've been using quite a lot, owned by Jellyfish, the agency that's part of the Brand Tech Group. So they really came at it from this like large brand marketing perspective. They're fantastic at content and media, figuring out how all of those insights can be cleaned and then used to enhance your content and your media. So as we've got on the slide here, one of the things it can do is feed direct insights into ad targeting Google PMax. So give you new search themes that you should add to your PMax campaigns based on the insights it's pulling through from the models. And I can imagine they'll do something similar with the other advertising platforms as well in the coming months. So that's what I like about it. Also an MCP in there as well, which makes it very easy to pull the data and customize that into reports for clients as well. So I think if I was going to start out in this space right now, if I was going to build a geo agency or an AI search agency and help brands in the way that Chris, you and I are doing, I would be really tempted to use a few. So I'd do my own research on pricing and capability and think about the client segment I'm going after and what they might need. And then I would definitely run a couple of them side by side and see what kind of results that you get from them. And I think it's probably still true that you can either build it into the price to clients and say, hey, I'm using a tool, it's included in the price, or you could even price your work and then you can put the cost of the tool on top for clients as well, and then you can offer them the opportunity to run a couple if they want to. So a few different ways to think about it. This is definitely not an exhaustive list. It's just 4 that are being used. Like you said, there's 100 in the market now, which is a pretty significant number. I think with a vibe coding tool, you could probably one-shot one of these into existence now at the basic level to do prompt tracking. And I've certainly done that in the past, but it's just these guys are fully invested in making these tools work, in deploying new capabilities in the platform. So right now, I think it definitely makes sense to use them. And then I think what then gets really interesting, right, is like, what's the signal coming out of them? And then how do you build that into your own custom workflows for your clients? That's the value prop and the build side of things. I think a geo or an AI search agency can get stuck into right now.
Yeah, for sure. And applying that agentic workflow on top to kind of automate a lot of the heavy grunt work. I think these guys, the reason we put these on, these are the guys that have funding behind them. And the organizations that you'll hear most about, Profound, obviously a lot going on, doing lots of marketing, hiring pretty aggressively. Like you say, Peak had some funding. It's actually some funding from Harry Stebbings, so part of 20 VC. And then Searchable just had their latest funding round as well. So you'll hear a lot about these three and obviously agency technology. But yeah, there is a lot out there and you can build as well. But the Profound is an interesting one. They've got a crazy high valuation now. So they're obviously at unicorn status or just below. We're starting to see more in the market now, kind of broadening out their capabilities. So not just AI search, but really going after that entire marketing tech stack, which is a smart move. They don't just want to kind of pigeonhole within AI search, which will be a large part of their revenue, but there is a lot they can go after and kind of eat the lunch of some legacy MarTech that's in the market. So you'll see their agentic workflows start to touch many different disciplines within the marketing org going forward.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what gets adopted and used and the pricing of that as well, right? Because if they build out the platform and it does a lot more things, obviously then there's a justification for either maintaining the price or increasing the price, and then it's does do the people using it want all of those things? And my experience in big businesses, you pay a license for access to a tool and, like crazy money, 150 grand a year, and then you use one part of it for the thing that you need it for in the organization, but you have access to like 8 or 9 other things that you never use. And so there'll be like customer success champions who are constantly trying to make sure you're aware of what the latest capability is and why you should use it. But the challenge at the companies again is like who's the seat in the company that's going to use it, right? And what might change is if everything gets a lot more agentic, then you don't need that headcount internally to manage the platform because it's doing more of the things for you. The challenge is then going to become educating those people in the organizations how to set it all up and let it run. And I think we'll see probably more of these guys doing forward deployed engineers into the largest organizations to make sure they're getting the most out of the platform. So,
Yeah,
hey, sign
100%.
up, pay us 100, 200, 300, 500 grand a year. You'll get 2 people in your business, making sure you're maximizing the use out of the platform access that you have. So, yeah, that's how I think it'll roll.
Yeah, 100%. Just a small side note on this. I'm finding this with my own. So, obviously, running a business, you subscribe to lots of different technologies, whether it's like sales tech, whether it's CRM. Using Claude, I'm now building my own software and creating my own custom workflows based
Yeah.
off of the data coming from HubSpot and others. So I'm now, whenever I log into like a UI, I'm like, this doesn't work for me. This isn't right. I need to adjust this. So I end up just basically pulling the data and building something which works for my own workflows. So it's a bit of an interesting dynamic. If you're building tech at the moment, just be aware that because of agentic workflows, a lot of people are going to want to pull it apart and actually just get the data and use it in their own solutions.
Yeah.
So it's because we're kind of in this day to day, and there's still a lot of people that are kind of okay using tech, but I often just look at UIs now and I'm like, this is awful. I need more.
I totally with you, which is why also at LMO7 I've got this service proposition, which is data as a service. And the idea is like, I will help you connect to all of the different things you need to connect to, and then you can run your business out of Claude or ChatGPT, because I actually think that's how like brand new brands are going to set their business up that way. That's how they're going to run it. The same way that me and you have set our businesses up. And
Uh-huh.
so exactly that, they're not going to want to pay for access to a platform that they use one bit of, or has a clunky UI, or doesn't show the graph in the way they want it to. They just want the MCP connection so that they can just pull the data and have it flow perfectly into the workflow of creating the deck for the client, along with all the other different inputs that come in as well. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think the beauty of AI actually is when everything's connected. That's when it
Yeah.
gets crazy powerful. And the last thing I want to be doing is downloading Excel sheets or snipping stuff from a SaaS platform to give to the AI. I just want it to be directly connected and be getting all the right information on demand. So I think there's a whole business in doing that. I think it takes a long time for large organizations to get to that place, but I think it happens over the next like two or 3 years, I think. So then the bigger question comes like, what does a SaaS business do with a platform that costs them 4 million a year to maintain? Do they nuke the platform and then just create an MCP, or I don't know. I think it's a hard one.
Yeah, it's interesting. They kind of want to tie you in with the UIs. I use Zero for my accounting, and they'd been bugged for about a year to set up a native integrator with Claude, because they didn't really want people outside of the platform. But I think there's so much demand to extract the data, bring it into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, that they're going to have to adapt, or the customers will go
Or
to a vendor that does have that.
there's a workaround. Did I tell you I've done that? So there's like an API workaround. So I can query Zero from Claude. So let me send that to you afterwards,
Nice.
because I
But
get it to do like all my invoice matching and stuff in the background.
they've actually launched the connector now for set up. I was badgering them for a
Oh,
while.
I see. Okay, gotcha. So
I didn't want to go.
you were talking about them getting to that point, and I'm
Yeah.
just saying they've got to that point because I've got it set up, and so have you.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, they were kind of slow. They wanted to keep the users within Zero, but I think they just got so much demand for I need access to this data within Claude that they ended up having to obviously build the functionality. So there's a native connector now, which is great.
So
But
maybe
my
that's what
point
I'm
is,
using. but I have to pay £6 a month for the
Oh,
access. Do you pay that?
you don't need to do that anymore, mate. Yeah, you can do
Oh,
a,
alright, you're ahead of
there's
me.
a native connector in Claude now with 0.
Oh, that is cool. Learn something every day. I thought I was ahead using the REST API, but actually, I mean, this is just the beauty of the time that we're in now, right? I set the REST API up whenever, like 5, 6 months ago, thinking I'm getting ahead of the game, and now there's a connector and I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, so you just saved yourself 6 quid there, mate. There you go.
Bosh,
Get us a beer next time I see you.
that will do.
Nice. Right, what else are
So,
we so is it
yeah.
worth running several in tandem? And I think myself and you obviously did a market evaluation of the different technologies out there. I think it's always good to like test the different platforms, and often they do like free 7-day trials, or the entry point is pretty low. So you can kind of test them on a couple of clients or one client and then move on to another if it's not really fit for your purposes. But our recommendation would be evaluate what's out there, see what works for your business, whether you're a brand or whether you're an agency. And it's going to differ based on the different clients you're supporting. So if you're an agency and you're working with D2C, e-com, there's maybe certain features in some of these platforms which works better. And then if you're maybe in the B2B space, you want to kind of evaluate other technologies. So I think the answer here is yes for enterprise and agencies. But no, if you're a single brand on budget, then you're going to get 85% of the way with just a single vendor.
And if anyone listening to the conversation, especially that bit about zero as well, I'm thinking, oh, it's maybe a bit complicated to do. Not sure how to do that. I just connected the zero MCP in the background while we are talking, so that's done. Now I need to go tell Claude to rework all the skills I've got set up around it and say use that instead of the REST API. But anyway, that could be tonight's job. So I mean, I think I'm massively indexed towards, I guess, like the idea of building your own stuff where you can and then leveraging the tech where it's possible and being a little bit agnostic to the tech, if that makes sense. Like I think we know from history that like being over reliant on one platform is potentially a risk. So you know, I've seen it with companies and platforms and services that are built around the ecosystem of Google, and then Google changes something, and then their business model is like wiped out overnight, right? Or they do it themselves, and then their business isn't needed anymore. So I think being sort of platform agnostic, always indexing towards what you know, what can you build, what's the layer that you can build on top is definitely the right way to think about it.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Think there's a few different directions you can go in, but the front end of these platforms will get you a long way. But yeah, to really power your agency or your brand, you're going to need custom workflows, which where the MCP or API comes into play. So
It does, and that's you figure that out by doing the work for clients. Like the things you're being asked to do will drive the workflows that you need to create. So I think it's to me that's like a super great way to build a business.
yeah, 100%. For these organizations, they're shipping pretty fast because yeah, the ability to build new features and capabilities is super fast now with AI. So there's a few different new capabilities across Profound, Peak, Searchable, and others. Things like agent analytics, actions within Peak. You've got an MCP and API now available within Searchable. And they're doing some really cool stuff in agentic commerce through Shopify integrations, and then more stuff coming from share of model around perception signals. So every tool is kind of what we mentioned at the start. I think back in 2025, it was really monitoring and reporting. Every tool is now moving towards that execution layer. And obviously 2026 is the year of agentic workflows. This is really starting to bed in now across these platforms. And then you layer in AI shopping, LLM advertising, it's just like natural developments of the technologies going forward. So yeah, lots of cool stuff in 2026 and beyond.
Well, final slide, I guess, which is quite often we come back to, I guess, some tips to take away for the audience who are listening, because everyone's going to be invested in or trying to figure out what to do on AI search. And I think you had a great way of putting this about SEO and AEO before.
SEO is the foundation. Think of it like a football tournament, like the World Cup, which
Yeah.
unfortunately we've been kicked out of. But SEO gets you through the group stages. AEO gets you to the final, and GEO helps you win the final. So it's an iterative process. All three are important, and all three have their place in what we define as AI search or AI search optimization.
It's funny, I got asked this question at an event the other day, which is like, does GEO work? Like, or is it just, smoke and mirrors? And it's funny because, for sure, there's some things being shared about GEO, as always, and has been true of SEO previously that, don't work and or maybe might work against you. But it was a funny kind of question because if you think about what GEO or AEO or this AI search is trying to do is, well, how can you find a way to improve your visibility inside of the models? That's largely what it's trying to do and achieve. There are ways to do that. We've seen it being done. Like, it wouldn't be true that brands come in visibility and go out of visibility if, those changes weren't having an impact. So I find it a really interesting question, and I guess maybe the same people were questioning SEO at the very beginning when, search engines first came about and wondering whether it was actually possible to get visibility in them. I mean, the crazy thing as well is, obviously, we know these AI search tools are pulling information from search results, so for sure you need to do some SEO work. It would be silly to not do that. I think the interesting thing for brands is that it was an organic play in search at the beginning. Then ads came along, and no one needed to do SEO to the nth degree because that extra level of investment didn't make sense because you just put the money into ads and create the visibility that way instead. So a lot of brands did SEO to like 70, 80% finished, I would say. And then now it's an organic play again. So, like, all of a sudden, it makes sense to take the SEO work from the 80 that they're at previously to maybe 90 and then try and do some more things on the AEOG side for that organic visibility. But the paid play is going to come back too. So, like, watch out for that when it happens. And of course, it's already happening right now. And then I think the final thing we've got on this slide as well is, like, pick your vendor, like figure out one, if especially if you're going to be doing work. Maybe you're at a brand and you're doing the work internally. Maybe you're setting up a services agency. Maybe you're an agency already looking to do this. Like, get one that's got API and MCP access. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier to analyze the data, to cut the data, to put the data into visuals that you can share with clients. And I think that's true not only for AI search tools, but also for all tools that you might put in your stack, right? Like, you should be looking for stuff that's already got an MCP or certainly is about to launch with one because it's going to make your life a whole lot easier and everything's going to be way more productive if it's all connected into Claude or ChatGPT.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. If you're, it's just a great way to kind of bring everything. And I look at my own Claude now, and it's got like automation skills. We're using scheduled tasks. We've got routines set up in code. We're obviously building in code as well for Blackbird. So it just becomes a central engine where all the data pings in. And from there, we have the automations built. So instead of operating pretty manually or kind of static, maybe semi automation on things like reporting, if you can get everything in a central place, you can just create a beast and really scale out. You can basically take on more clients if you're an agency, and give some time back to really focus on strategy and some of the other important stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a good point. And I think on the SEO AEO point as well, we spoke about this previously, but I think back towards the end of 2025, a lot of people in the SEO community were like, it's just 90% SEO. Now we're in the middle of 2026. That narrative has fundamentally changed. People are understanding now that they're definitely very different disciplines, and SEO will only get you so much of the way.
For sure.
When it comes to AEO and GEO, there are new elements, new disciplines, which are completely removed from the SEO world. So I'm thinking here like digital PR. Before it was keywords, ranking, attribution was clean. You could tie that back to Google. Now, in certain cases, you've got 80% of the citations coming from earned media. That was never an issue back in the SEO days. And then there's 5 or 6 other examples of this where the two disciplines are very, very different. We see it SEO lead now converting to geo lead or AI search lead, because I think everyone's now starting to realize that AI search is the default or will be the
Yes.
default soon. And yeah, things have changed for the first time in 20, 25 years.
Yeah, it's a big shift, isn't it? It's a big shift. So look forward to chatting about more of those changes in the upcoming podcasts with you. And I think we'll roll again next week with episode 12. And in not too long in the future, we'll do another in person one as well.
Good. I think we have a guest slot next week, which is super exciting. If you're ever wanting to be on the agent economy, we've got 2 or 3 people joining us over the next few weeks. We've always got slots for people that are building in this space, and want to be a part of the agent economy. So yeah, do get in contact.
Awesome. Thanks,
Good
Chris.
stuff. Thanks for your time, guys. See you in the next one.